this is not overly recent. I understand that,
couple
but
days ago.
just a couple days ago, there's a famous cartoon program known as The Jetsons. And that show was part of the Hanna-Barbera, for those of you that will remember that name, stable of cartoons that were offered to children on weekends, specifically on Saturday mornings. And the show posited that in the future, humans would be traveling from one place to another above the clouds. Most people would be living in the sky. In addition to all of the technological advancements, which included flying cars from one place to another, every single family would have a humanoid robot as an assistant that would aid the family in engaging in all of the dreary chores that the mother, the daughter, the father, the son, they didn't want to have to do anymore. These humanoids were there to practically do all the dirty work that humans didn't want to do anymore. Of course, the comedic picture that was painted by that show was one where most people didn't blink an eye at what this was necessarily portending for the future. Fast forward a few decades, and now we have one of the world's most richest technocrats, some would call him, I think rightfully so, Elon Musk, stating recently, most recently in the World Economic Forum, that in the not too distant future, he says, every single family will have a humanoid in their house. When he is asked by none other than BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, what does this portend for the future of work and humanity, he says, well, necessarily abundance is going to change. Not everyone is going to have access to that abundance. This is a far cry from the whitewashing that cartoons like the Jetsons were putting forth about the future. But was that always simmering under the surface, and were people not willing to tell us of what this, as it were, pretends or presumes to bring about that damages in some way and undercuts human essence? It's part of what we're going to talk about in this edition of Irrespective, a very introspective, some would say, edition of Irrespective. Welcome each and every one of you to this new episode. For those of you that might be joining us for the first time, I am one of your co-hosts. We are our co-host, Gio. Here's my co-belligerent, Jesus.
So Gio said that just recently he was a child, and I need to say that just recently I was a young lad myself. And when I was a young lad myself, I recall at that stage in my life, there was a program called Lost in Space. And they had a robot, this family that was traveling in space and got lost out there. They had a robot, and the main line, or the one that people used to repeat, was "Danger, Will Robinson! Danger, danger, Will Robinson!" And that robot was very, very popular. They sold it as a toy. I never got one. I wanted one, but I never got one. For whatever reason, my parents didn't get me one. I was upset at my parents for a while for not getting me one. But the point that I'm driving to is young people love this stuff. They love Elon Musk. There's a place where our family, goes every now and then for burgers, a night of burgers, an afternoon of burgers. We try to eat healthy, but every now and then we break these healthy rules, and we don't eat so healthy. We go for burgers. And the
It's
interesting
nothing
thing
more
about
classic to American cuisine than burger and fries.
absolutely, the interesting thing about this place, it's really interesting. You see the amount of people that frequent this place, and once the waiter or waitress takes your order, guess who brings the food to your table? A robot.
A robot. But it does have a cat smiley face on it
The
to endear
kids,
itself to you.
the kids love it. So while you in your mind are saying, "I don't want a robot. I don't need a robot. These hands have been more than enough, and they will continue to suffice." The kids actually want robots. And so these are waters that you, mom, you, dad, you, grandparents, you're going to have to navigate and start having conversations with your kids, your Christian kids. Yes, your child that believes in God and he's getting a lot of contrary opinions and teachings as to the existence of God, you are going to have a conversation with your kids about these issues. And this is why you and I take the time to bring these topics to you, because we believe that the church for the longest time, Gio, and if you disagree, please keep it to yourself, just went to church, sang a couple of songs, and they lived in this bubble. And next thing we know, we open our eyes and life has passed us by. And it seems like whatever influence the church once had over society is gone, precisely because we just spent time singing a couple of songs, listening to a sermon, and not tackling the issues of the time that God set us in place for, so that we could be salt and light.
Complete an agreement. Now, before we continue, some housekeeping items. We do have the clip to play for the audience, and then we will comment on said clip. Do not forget to subscribe. There are a few of you who watch these videos but have not yet subscribed. We encourage you to do so, and we would ask you why. Why are you committing such an act of insurrection? Trump might be unwilling, although he talks a big game of bringing in walls and fray for insurrection, although it's kind of interesting that he would go halfway across the world to get Maduro, but what's happening in his doorstep, he doesn't seem to really be inclined to do anything about it. Interestingly enough, not in our case. You do commit insurrection against irrespective, we have various tools to bring you to heel.
Not signing up could be castigated by stoning.
That's correct, among other sorts of, shall we call them, assorted punishments.
40 stripes minus one. I'm just trying to keep it biblical.
One person wrote us and they said that an adequate resolution to said thing would be a French Revolution guillotine. But then again,
the Bible talks about decapitation.
Correct. Okay. So if you don't want to suffer these sorts of penalties, we would encourage you strongly, if you get our drift, to subscribe, hit the notification bell, click on the thumbs up, and share the content with others. Please do not forget to interact with us. Also, you can write your comments and your questions on the chats. If you're watching this through YouTube, if you're watching this through Rumble. Do not forget to donate. It helps us to continue to put out this content for your edification. There is a QR code in the upper left-hand corner of the screen that you can scan. Conversely, there is a link that you can tap on or click on, depending on what device you're watching this transmission through, in the description beneath the video player. And last but not least, do not forget to donate. Well, I already said that. Last but not least, do not forget to follow us on X. Maybe it was just a rehashing of your needed support in this manner.
Avoid the lake of fire. Join us, follow us, donate, pray for us.
Correct.
But please avoid the lake of fire.
Correct. Follow us on X,
which is in Minneapolis.
At Irrespective 77. All right, let's go ahead and play that clip. Folks, as we did previously in one of the most recent clips that we played for the audience, we're going to let the whole thing play, and then we're going to go back, scrub through the video, and take each point isolated and talk about it, because there's an awful lot that Elon places in here that not too many people have taken time to examine what the implications are of what Elon is helping, is aiding and abetting in promoting. So just to set the stage here, Musk, most people thought he wasn't going to make an appearance at Davos this year. This is where, in Switzerland, where the World Economic Forum holds its annual meetings, because he had stated that he had no intention on going. Lo and behold, there's a bit of a radio silence from the guy, and he appears on the stage with none other than what some would call public enemy number one, especially people whom are against globalism, and rightfully so, Larry Fink, head of BlackRock, who sits and interviews Elon Musk. And among the things that Elon said about the future of humanity and robotics and technology was as follows.
When Mammon beckons.
I mean, the way to think of it is that if you have a large number of humanoid robots, the economic output is the average productivity per robot times the number of robots.
Right.
And actually, my prediction is in the benign scenario of the future that the robots will actually make so many robots in AI that they will actually saturate all human needs. Meaning you won't be able to even think of something to ask the robot for at a certain point. Like there will be such an abundance of goods and services, because my prediction is that there'll be more robots than people. So,
but how do you then have human purpose in that scenario?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's perfect, But, but I mean, it is a necessary. Like you can't have both. You can't have work that has to be done and amazing abundance for all. Because if it's work that has to be done, then you and only some people can do it, then you can't have abundance.
Then
for
it's
all.
narrow.
Yes, narrow.
Yeah.
Exactly. So. But if you have billions of humanoid robots, and I think there will be, I think everyone on Earth is going to have one and going to want one, because who wouldn't want a robot to, assuming it's very safe, watch over your kids, take care of your pet. If you have elderly parents, I mean, overall, I'm very optimistic about the future. I think we're headed for a future of amazing abundance. Which is very cool, and definitely we are in the most interesting time in history. I think there's a more interesting time in history. So.
Amazing abundance, but not for all.
Right.
And he did say in a benign
Right.
scenario.
Right. Meaning that the opposite could happen also.
Exactly.
Now let's scrub through the video, and we're going to isolate certain portions here because I said, and notice that he seems to have this issue with stuttering to get his point across. But you did mention something interesting about him, and it's this: sometimes, well, not sometimes, in many instances, he will actually interrupt his thought. That's an indication of certain people whom they have an intention of saying something, they hold that back. And then they'll replace it with something else because they don't want to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. Some have said, well, what has Elon proven to you? Because you mentioned earlier, and I need to mention this, is there's a lot of people that have a positive view of Elon Musk.
He's a hero to many young people. He's been on SNL, The Big Bang Theory.
Yep.
You name it, the kids love this guy.
It's kind of curious. I still remember when MAGA considered this guy an enemy because they saw him as part of the Silicon Valley tech oligarchs, however you want to denominate them, and they saw people like him as an enemy against what they called conservative nationalism. But then he attached himself to Trump, as did many other of the tech bros, especially when Trump ascended to office once again about a year and a half ago. And then everything that they had done to try to damage Trump, Trump seemingly forgave that, if we can call that forgiveness, and he attached them to himself. Because, as we all know, in order to get into Trump's good graces, all you have to do is kiss his posterior for a little bit, say how great he is, and suddenly you are the greatest person on the face of the earth, and he will do your bidding. And it seems like he's blind to that, amongst other things, but
I'll say it again,
nevertheless,
Gio. When Mammon beckons, his followers show up.
they show up.
And a lot of these things that they present to us, they will tell us and try to convince us these are benign things.
Right.
We're really thinking about you and your well-being and your welfare. No. They're thinking about themselves.
Right.
Even the purchase of Twitter, now X, there was a business deal behind the scenes. And to the public, it was all about the First Amendment, freedom of speech. And now X is back to where they were previously.
Yes.
They are shadow banning just about anybody that has a different opinion than the one that society
Present.
demands us to have.
Present.
So
Let's scrub back through this. And as I was saying earlier, Musk has been one of the persons whom has most helped transhumanism advance. For those of you that might not be in the know, transhumanism, very short definition. These are people whom they say that we need to advance technology so as to augment and make humanity superior to our current, what they call processes and limitations. So people like Ray Kurzweil, who's been known as a futurist for the long time, part of the board of Google, Elon Musk, and others. The reason that some people, or a lot of people, tend to prefer, as it were, Musk is they said, well, he's talked more about the dangers of the things and many of the technologists have. They are purely optimists, or at least that's what they portray to the public. Elon has talked about the drawbacks, and he has said that he wants to put in certain safeguards. But we've talked about Musk before. He wants in on that entire transhumanist idea because he wants to profit from it in some way, shape, or form. But he wants to give also the impression that somehow he's a moderate in all of this thing by saying, I actually care about humanity and I am a humanitarian in this case.
I don't think Elon is the type of individual that is satisfied by participating, being one of. I think he would like to head
Yes.
any and all companies and issues and innovations that might be available, even if they're still in the thinking stage. He's just not happy being one of. He wants to head these things.
Well, when you consider his past, and certain people have written about this, this guy has positioned himself as an innovator in the tech sector when a lot of the times the way that he has moved into, for example, companies like PayPal, Tesla, and others has been by, what's that term that they use in the area of the stock markets and whatnot, a hostile takeover. That's the way that he has positioned. But then he rewrites his history to say, I just love humanity. In other words, it's like Bill Gates. Bill Gates engages in a lot of nefarious activity, but he whitewashes his intentions by saying, I've made so much money that I just want to use it to help others, and people end up believing him. Case in point, let's listen back, let's scrub through the video. We're going to isolate each of these points, and we're going to ask certain questions, which I think will reveal how truly dark and tenebrous these things are if they get to a place where the tech bros, including Musk themselves, want
I mean,
us
the way
to
to
go.
think of it is that if you have a large number of humanoid robots, the economic output is the average productivity per robot times the number of robots.
Right.
I need to pause it there. If you think about it, he's already presenting robotics in purely economic terms. One of the complaints that voters had not too long ago, and one of the reasons that it helped propel Trump back into the presidency, even though he's not making very good on many of his economic promises, was to bring back manufacturing into the country, to make, as it were, human work important once again, and to steal or take away the grip that the Silicon Valley tech overlords had over the economy, where people like Zuckerberg, you and I were criticizing him years ago, where he was promoting the entire universal basic income. They were promoting their technologies as, in essence, displacing humanity. And when some people heard this, they said, no, we don't want to become obsolete. I'm human. I have worth. I have an essence. I want to continue to, as it were, provide, because it's part of what makes me essentially human. It's the way that God designed me. The Silicon Valley tech types, they have a completely different view of the word. They don't care, frankly, if they displace all of humanity, as long as they are making the money and they're providing the technology to fill their own pockets. I quoted it before and I'll quote it again. This is exemplified by primarily by none other than the principal philosopher of the World Economic Forum, which we profiled on Sunday, Noah Yuval Harari, where he said, in the future, when the singularity happens, when transhumanism happens, it'd be best if we just take the useless portion of humanity that we've outmoded, we've outdated with technology, give them sterilants or sterilizers, give them food and give them video games so that they can die off, because they're not going to be useful anymore for humanity. That is the future that these people envision for humanity. And notice already that he is framing his presentation of robotics in terms of it's going to be increased economic output.
Productivity.
Right.
And when you think about it, one of the things that brought abundance to many, many Americans was the automobile industry, whether it was in the manufacturing sector, the sales. It just brought a lot of people out of need and lack and into middle class, upper middle class. What happens if all of a sudden robotics comes into the manufacturing of cars? So again, he makes it sound like there is a need, and the need is we need to build these things, and it seems like humans can't do it. Well, they've been doing it all this time. So they create this narrative that humans can't do this, therefore robotics is needed. When you squeeze this, when you look at it, you perch yourself up a little higher and you look at it, it's all about eliminating the workers. And this starts to explain why abundance won't be there. Phenomenal abundance, he goes on to say, won't be available to all. It'll just be available to a few, the people that deal with the robotics, because if the robot can take care of the assembly line completely, those jobs are gone. And now these people that have been making all kinds of money in the automotive industry, they're gone. What are they to do? And then you keep moving robotics into different areas of life, like he does explain. Eventually, we're talking about childcare. We're We're talking about taking care of your pets. We're talking about taking care of the elderly. In some Walmarts, they are trying this already. The greeter is a robot.
Right.
And so every time you look at this, you need to think these are people that are losing their jobs, and then they're telling you, but the productivity, they're enriching themselves in two ways. One, they produce more with less losses, showing up late, being sick, time off for vacation. And this is a salary that they just got rid of.
Right.
You multiply that times whatever, they're going to be bringing in huge amounts of money for themselves, and the rest will have to be on a check, or some sort of a welfare check, or take other positions that don't make as much until they take over those positions.
Or you do
over.
what Yuval Harari says, that you just do away with those humans altogether because they're going to be
Well, there you
useless.
go.
I mean,
There you
he's openly stated this, and it doesn't seem as if he cares much for the pushback, and rightfully so, that he's getting over this. So Elon is in essence promoting the same future, but he frames it in such a way where we're going to provide these humanoids to fill the things, to do the dreary tasks that people just don't want to do.
Gio, why would you bring a robot? Because he goes on to ask, and who wouldn't want one or two of these
He
humanoids?
is a salesman at the end of the day.
Why would you bring in a robot to take care of your elderly parents?
Mhm.
I ask. I
Yes.
sincerely ask. Why would you trust a robot to take care of your elderly parents?
A good question.
He's even talking about childcare.
He is. He is talking
Why
about
would you
childcare.
trust a robot with this? Well, because they could be trustworthy. Eventually, they could do things like human beings do them, and it won't be an issue. And we'll save money on daycare,
Mhm.
and we'll save money on a nursing home.
So he ends up
situation.
convincing people about the savings, and that's how they buy into the idea.
And I can already hear the whole teaching. You don't need to send your kids to school anymore.
The
The
robot.
robot will teach
Right.
the child while the robot is taking care of mom and dad, in other words, the grandparents. And you, well, you go out and enjoy life and see if you can keep another type of job, because we're coming after your job also.
The question is, will the teachers' unions put up with that, or will they try to unionize the robots to belong to part of the teachers'
But this
unions?
is why I mentioned, Gio, that parents need to have conversations with their kids. But first of all, you need to pick up on these issues so you can have a conversation that your child will say, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Mm.
Because they're not selling these things to you and I, who are, at least in my case, I'm ready to move out and go home to be with Jesus, hopefully soon. The target is the young
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
and they will eat this up. They will eat this up for sure, and they will start saying, bring on the robots.
Well, that's why I mentioned at the beginning of the episode in our cold intro about the Jetsons. Everything about the Jetsons, as it were, necessarily was just benign, to use the term that Elon used. And most people said that's the future that we have to look forward to, without talking about the drawbacks, which in many instances, when one analyzes these things in a cool and calculated manner, you think there are actually more drawbacks than advantages. It'd be best if we don't go down this path. But unfortunately, it reminds me of something that the author of Amusing Ourselves to Death said in a presentation many years ago. This is a couple of years before he died. Said, the American culture is such that if these people that are presenting these so-called technological advances to society were to be honest with the public, and they were to say, look, we have this technology for you, and these are the advantages, but then they were to delineate what all of the drawbacks are, and if they were to be more numerous than the advantages, the attitude of the modern American was, oh, let's give it a try anyways.
There are people preferring robotic pets already.
Yes.
And you can almost hear the argument, if you want to live in this apartment building,
Mm-hmm.
you can't have a dog, but you can have a robotic dog,
Right.
because it doesn't have to bark.
Right.
It won't pee on the floor.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth.
All of this under the cult of convenience, by the way.
Absolutely. And so, again, for you and I, my friend, you who are, I don't know, 50, 55, 60, we're going like, please push this thing away from me. The young people are eating this
Oh,
stuff
they'll eat
up.
this up. They'll see. They're definitely eating this up.
And actually, my prediction is in the benign scenario of the future that
But you please notice that he himself says in the benign scenario. So he has to admit that this can all go awry. He can't state with a straight face, at the very least, that all of this could go bad. You know,
And he has stated as much. He says that we are flirting with a dangerous
Right.
future.
Right. Well, it's one of the reasons so many people are endeared to him, because they look at him as some sort of a moderate technologist, but here he is promoting the very thing. Let me give you another example to prove my point. He himself says that if we embark on the journey of transhumanism and take it to its logical and natural end, meaning the natural consequence of engaging in the practices that people like Ray Kurzweil and the other technologists are trying to take us down, he says it's going to be ground zero for humanity. It's done. We're done. So he says the best way to do it, he doesn't say, let's not look for that technology. He actually starts, for example, Neuralink, which is a way to hack, as it were. And I remember a couple of years ago, he was already announcing that the phase 1 trials, where they were implanting microchips in people's brains to augment their mental bandwidth, as it were, and capacity for understanding and learning, they've already done the first experiments. Look it up and you'll find that we are not lying about this. He was saying it's been a success. Of course, there's not too many details as to what these people are learning, what's being injected into their mind, if the trials were necessarily or truthfully successful. None of that. It's just pure presentation. But then you have to ask yourself the question, and I go back to finish my thought previously before I interrupted myself, because it's all part of it. Let me ask the audience the question. What happens then to surveillance? Because as it is now, we are living in a police state. We are living in a surveillance state, regardless of what you think or the propaganda that you've bought into, that we are still the land of the free and home of the brave. We are one of the most surveilled people on the face of the earth, especially the intelligence agencies in our country. I mean, they have looked inward. It's been decades now that they've looked inward, where supposedly the original mission of the CIA, which was originally the OSS, was to look outward, foreign, to see what the enemies of America had planned against it. Many years ago, it started moving inward and keeping an eye on people within our country. Consider this robot that is in your house. Consider the Neuralink. Consider all these things that they tell you, this is only going to augment your existence. Who or what is your brain going to be connected to? Who or what is that robot going to be connected to? Who can tap into that feed, et cetera, et cetera? You begin to see. I told you the other day, it reminded me of a testimony that none other than General David Petraeus gave under the Obama administration, where he told Congress in no uncertain terms, yes, the so-called connected devices of the houses, the Internet of Things, the CIA can necessarily tap into those things and collect data and actually actively surveil people. So if the CIA, the NSA, and others are doing this with the Internet of Things now that are connected in the house, including the thermometers and all these other things, smart televisions, what have you, what makes you think that Elon, through Tesla and through whatever other companies he owns, isn't going to be doing this through the robotics? You can see the tail, the implications of all of this.
One of the things that I have heard over and over throughout the years is the following. This is so far into the future that I am not going to concern myself with it, because I won't be around when these technologies and advances in science come into play
That's an attitude a lot of Christians embrace, unfortunately.
on many things.
Right.
And maybe we can bring that up on another podcast.
Yep.
But just look around. We were talking about pets that when you look at that thing, you go like, that's a robot. And you're driving down the street and you see a car without a driver.
Yep.
In certain parks, you no longer see a police officer out there. It's an animal of sorts.
Yeah.
They make it look like a dog.
Yes.
It's a robot patrolling the parks.
They've deployed this in Boston, New York City, et cetera, et cetera.
They're talking about airplanes that will be flown by AI.
Yep.
And so if you just take a breath and look, you will see that the implementation of all these things is here.
Yep.
And all they are doing is spoon feeding the information to you while they get you to adapt to it and say, yeah, this is for the best, and we yield to it. So once the issue gets here and it's irreversible,
Yeah.
it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
No going back.
Robots will actually make so many robots in AI that they will actually saturate all human needs.
You see?
Meaning you won't be able to even think of something to ask the robot for at a certain point.
In other words, the robot is going to know your thoughts, your desires, your wishes before you express them. If you think about it, that's a, shall we call it, and I don't mean to blaspheme with this, the audience will understand the spirit in which I'm saying this, a godlike quality in these robots, but it
Well,
goes
if
back
you
to
have a chip implanted in you that is communicating, talking to, in contact with the robot,
I'm telling you,
it's not like it reads your mind or anything. They have made the connection, and now you're basically telling the robot without words, I need for you to go to the store and pick this
right,
and that and the other thing up. And there goes the robot.
right,
The car drives by itself.
right,
The order is waiting for you at your grocery store.
Right.
Bring it back, and you have another robot that can probably cook that
exactly,
and spoon feed you.
exactly.
Like there will be such an abundance of goods and services because
But that is a false dichotomy when you think about it. There will be such an abundance of goods and services. Here's the essential problem. If you put people out of work, then where does that abundance, as it were, necessarily go? It's being centralized more and more by people like him. Folks, might I remind you that during COVID was probably the biggest wealth transfer in the history. Maybe I'm being hyperbolic by stating this, but I remember reading this on a few reports, not only in the United States, but in the history of the world. Why? Since more people were at home and they were given orders to stay at home, this, that, and the other thing, the biggest manufacturers, the biggest technology companies and whatnot, a lot of that wealth that was concentrated in the middle class was immediately, as it were, transferred. They use that word transferred. We would use the term more raised, as it were, by the Amazons, the Microsofts, the Teslas of life. It was the biggest wealth transfer in history of the United States, something, as it were, that the middle class has never recuperated from. And if there's one thing that we know about people like Elon and others, is that they love centralization because it just means more money for them. So this is a lot of snake oil from this guy.
So if you have a multiplication of goods and services not run by humans,
Right.
run by robots, how do you purchase those goods
Right.
and services?
Right.
And so now you start to understand even more why abundance will not be available to all.
Yep.
We talk about the,
That's a centrally planned economy when you think about it.
well, we talk about, and throughout the years we've mentioned this for different reasons. As we look to India, we go, oh, you can't really run away or try to run away from your poverty because that's your
Case.
karma.
Yes.
And so when you have these systems where you have, the uppercase, middle, lower,
You can't get out of that.
You can't. You shouldn't even try. They're setting us up for something similar.
Right. Yeah, granted.
Because let's just say that whatever it is that you have done for 20 years, they no longer need you. They found a robot that can do this for you. For example, let me give you another example. There are actually machines that work now in golf courses, and this is not quite there yet, but they're working on it, that will replace the people, most of the people that do the work on the grass.
Right.
Why? They can get robots. They can get AI to work these machines, mow the lawn, keep it fertilized.
Right.
Those jobs, in some cases, Gio, especially for the head individual, the head of the crew, that's at least $150,000 a year, even more,
Off the books.
and off the books. And the assistant will probably make 80, 90,000 off the books.
Or the other way to look at it is, because this is also another thing that Elon won't talk about and people like him, it comes off the books in salaries. But then people like Elon and their technology, now they absorb that. They end up taking that money in. So it's a crafty
And it's not just the
presentation.
salaries, it's the insurance.
Correct.
The health insurance.
Right.
And the days off, and somebody got sick and somebody got hurt. You can see where they're going with this,
Right.
and therefore abundance, beautiful abundance, won't be there for most, just for a few.
That's why they've presented the technologist view of the future as one that is essentially anti-human, and I think rightfully so.
my prediction is that there'll be more robots than people. So
But how do you then have human purpose? And
That is interesting that Larry Fink, of all people, were to ask that question, because even he can't deny that there's a massive implication for the future of humanity there.
scenario.
yeah, I mean, nothing's perfect, but
So Elon himself is admitting that there's massive potential drawbacks here, contrary to his whitewashing presentation. So he himself has to admit it.
And the thing that went down, Gio, is human purpose.
Right.
Because that was the topic that they were tackling right there at that point. Human purpose. Well, not everything is perfect. In other words, there goes human purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is a necessary. Like, you can't have both. You can't have work that has to be done and amazing abundance for all.
Why not?
Why not? That is such a false dichotomy.
Why not? I'll go back to my example about the auto industry. We had a lot of people making great salaries. Why throw those jobs away?
Yeah.
Because the robots can do it better. That's the sales pitch. The robots can do it better. No, they can do it for a lot less,
Correct.
and the profits will be huge.
So again, it's
So-
anti-human.
He's lying to you. And again, the kids are listening to this and they're going like, yeah, and they'll repeat his words.
Even though he's the prime target, or they are the prime target of Elon's replacement and the technologist's replacement.
Because if it's work that has to be done, then you and only some people can do it, then you can't have abundance.
Then
for
it's
all.
narrow.
It's narrow.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
This is the typical modern, shall I say, crony capitalist mentality of capital. Whenever you read, and I would encourage the audience, read Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations. Adam Smith, being inspired by the Christian ethic, he himself said that when you're talking about abundance, when you're talking about wealth, it's not something that necessarily is so limited that now you necessarily have, it's just like there isn't enough of a pie to go around. He himself said, no, if you let a free market work, abundance will naturally, as it were, not only extend itself, it will grow as a consequence. We in the United States, as it were, for those of you that might be watching this elsewhere, we are, if you think about it, the United States has proven that, even though we're no longer a free market, but we still have, I guess, shreds of it here and there. We've proven that. It's not about this idea, well, there's just a limited pie and there's not really a lot to extend. There's enough of the pie to go around, but people like Musk would have you think that because they want a bigger slice of the pie.
And the biggest tweaking that I've seen that the free market has had to bring on, or that we've had to do to the free market, is called monopoly.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Yep.
Once these people try to corner a market, an idea, a service, you have to bring the antitrust situation into play. Otherwise, what they want to do with this, they will do it with everything else, and they've tried it. So the only important and really important tweaking that I see, perhaps my friend sees many more, that has been implemented into the free market is the idea of antitrust.
Yeah.
Because people have tried to corner markets, and I can think of the auto industry, how it happened there.
Yep.
Communication, the telephone lines, and with Southern Bell and et cetera. And so when
Microsoft
he says,
is one of the most recent examples.
exactly, when he goes on to say this, you can't have it both, we both said, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can have many, many, many different jobs and people can do it, and you don't have to deploy robots to do these things. I mean, it's everywhere. Women are having their houses vacuumed by a little robot.
Right.
And we've got soldiers of fortune being prepared by the big armies of the countries to fight certain wars and put them in borders. It's everywhere,
It
folks.
is everywhere. Yep.
but if you have billions of humanoid robots, and I think there will be,
Billions.
then
By the way, if he does produce billions because he has a company that produces them, he stands. That's why he wants there to be billions, because he stands to make more money than what he's already made.
I think everyone on Earth is going to have one and going to want one.
What about for those of us that refuse? What happens to us? Just to ask a question, a rhetorical
The thing
question.
is, he gets you in that race where if you don't have one,
Right.
you lag behind even more. And so now the pressure to get one or two or three,
Yep.
it's going to be all over people.
There you go.
Because
Intentionally, by the way, manipulated by
Absolutely.
people like him.
Absolutely.
who wouldn't want a robot to, assuming it's very safe, watch over your kids?
An awful lot of qualifiers there, right? Notice how he says, take care of the kids, take care of the elderly.
The pets.
What happens then to families? Because one of the responsibilities and one of the moral responsibilities that the children have toward their parents is to take care of them when they get older, just like the parents took care of the children when they were birthed and ushering them in to adulthood. That is a cycle that God himself he created for us, and it's part of what gives us our meaning and our essence. All of a sudden now he wants to introduce artificiality into that removes
Now
that
you're
relationship.
removing a biblical responsibility.
Exactly. But this is to your earlier point. A
And
bunch of Christians
so-
are going to adopt this.
Great point, you, because now he's getting into the territory that belongs to the church. I mean, we are supposed to take care of our parents, and the Bible is very clear about this. Well, I'm doing it. I bought them a robot.
I bought them a T1000. I bought them a Terminator.
Their grandparents 202
I bought them a Terminator.
with a longer lasting battery.
This one's a Duracell, not an Energizer.
I mean, it's so well prepared that it can shock Dad's heart back into rhythm.
He's no longer dead.
Bring on the defibrillator.
It's called the Dick Cheney.
Care of your pet. If you have elderly parents, I mean, overall, I'm very optimistic about the future.
Yeah, it's all fluff from here on out, but I think the audience pretty much gets the point.
He's very optimistic.
At the end of the day, this is all more snake oil from a man who makes a lot of money off of selling snake oil. Now, I know what some of you are asking. Well, Gio, for those of you that do see the dangers that this portends for the future of humanity, what do we do? That's an entire episode in and of itself, but I'll give you some quick ideas, which I think you have to change your mindset on because things are moving and escalating so rapidly. It's important for Christians to begin to have, you know what, I was going to say something else. Let me put it this way. Maybe you need to start adopting a mindset that is more retro, in a sense, than what you're thinking. I'll give you an example. Now, it has become commonplace in America in the last 50 years to be displaced from the place where your ancestors are, where your family is buried, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's time that it is time that we start tapping back into those ideas. The ones that our ancestors, that our forebears had, that where they understood, I belong to a people, I'm part of a particular place. It's those identifying factors that give us our identity. And that's all instituted by God himself. As long as we don't lose sight of that, then we won't be trapped by this future, as they call it, so optimistically that they want to trap us into. This is why some people throughout the years have called me a Luddite. And I guess I wear that badge. It's not an insult to me. It was one of the things that I've made sure, and we've communicated this to our audience for the longest time, is that you always have to examine all things and everything, as it were, in moderation, as the Apostle Paul writes so succinctly in one of his letters. And the same thing with technology. You have to ask yourself, is this going to essentially take away something from me that makes me human? And if it does, after a long thought process on the matter, then I say, go ahead and adopt it. But even in your adoption of the very thing, understand, don't ever turn over your responsibilities, what it means to be human, over to these technologies. Because at that point, people like Musk, then they put their hooks in your mouth, and at that point, you're pretty much dead meat. You're dead
What
fish
is
at
it
that
that they
point.
call you, Gio?
Oh, a Luddite.
I've been called a troglodyte.
Well, that's a little more. That's a little bit different.
Should I wear that as a badge of honor?
I'm not gonna tell you what to wear as a badge of honor. Well, folks, we hope that this has been an informative edition. This is why we take the time to analyze these things, because most people will see clips like that and they'll say, fantastic, they'll give it the like without sitting and thinking, wait a minute, what is it that this guy or these people are trying to promote in these ideas? Instead of looking at these things critically, they simply adopt it as whatever the window dressing is, including what Musk and Larry Fink are presenting here. Irrespective exists to give you, irrespective of who it is, pun intended, irrespective of who's saying it, irrespective of what they're saying, is to analyze these things so you can truly see what's going on. We need your help. We need your help in two ways. Number one, if you have not yet subscribed, if you are informed, if you're edified by what we offer here, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell, click on the thumbs up, and share our content with others. It's the best way to help us grow the channels, to give people access to this information. Do not forget to donate. It helps us to continue to put out this content for your edification. There's a QR code in the upper left-hand corner of the screen that you can scan Conversely, there's a link underneath the video player that you can click on that will take you to PayPal services, which we're using to process those donations and patronages. And last but not least, do not forget to follow us on X at Irrespective77. Well, we're going to sign off by saying that we will gather once again, digitally, of course, Sunday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next edition of Irrespective. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode. We've certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. For my father, Jesus, this has been
Power
Gio.
to the troglodytes.
And power to the Luddites. Until the next occasion that we gather, may the Lord shine his face upon you.